Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much for watching. It would mean the world to us if you could just scroll down, like, hit the subscribe button for the Snaps YouTube channel. It goes a long way towards helping us out. Now, let's dive into some college football. The first most dangerous man in America may be Nick Saban. Spencer, where do you see? I want to get into kind of Saban's thoughts on maybe how he felt in his older age about like the offseason meetings. I thought it was kind of fascinating and player motivation. But with Saban retiring, if we wanted to start to dabble into some of maybe some 40K, is Saban retiring the death of the emperor of college football, or is it the beginning? Because do you think we see Nick Saban as we enter the 2024 gene of college football, right? And a football split looks inevitable, a split away from the NCAA, and maybe even a split into like a Premier League type of situation. Do you think Nick Saban starts to position himself as the kind of commissioner of college football?
I think that's a likely position. I think also he's got dude has a lot of business interests, like
Mhm.
particularly when it comes to his Mercedes affiliation. So I think he's probably got a lot of that on his mind. I know his money got taken care of eventually in coaching, but it might not be what you think it is because, like a lot of people in the 2000s, he had some bad investments. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he had
Some
a couple of
famously
those.
here in Baton Rouge.
Go Tigers. Yeah, there was a lot of that, and so he's got to take care of that. But I think a couple of things are happening here. One, I think we might be kind of taking trends and trying to come up to grand conclusions out of something which is pretty normal, which is the way I did things doesn't work and I'm 72. That's it. It doesn't work like,
Yeah.
yeah, it really doesn't work. And at a certain point, you have to consider the relationship between the employee who's been doing this real successfully for a real long time and the job, which has changed. That's inevitable, but that's not new. That's Bear Bryant. Bear Bryant had that happen to him during his career. He
Yeah.
started off being a guy who's responsible for the Junction Boys. He started off being the guy who his idea of training players was tantamount to torture. And by the time he retires, that won't fly anymore. You have to give like consider that his predecessor in greatness, the guy who is probably his most direct comp in terms of Bear Bryant, um, when he started giving people water at practice was considered weak. And
I
when he
mean,
retired, so when
it's
we talk
truly
about like,
it's hard to wrap your head around. Like it's
when we
actually
talk about
legitimately
like
hard to fathom.
right, when we talk about like, oh, all the changes in college football. Okay, man, it wasn't from 1950 to 1980 because I'm pretty sure during Nick Saban's entire tenure within football, in college football as a head coach, water was accepted at practice the whole time. Okay. It's changed a little bit. It hasn't changed that drastically, right? We've lived through or seen bigger changes that we can cite.
Well, yes, but then it's like the major change just all happened so fast. I mean, in terms of some of these seismic shifts, maybe that we've seen in terms of like the NCAA
Mhm.
repeatedly losing all these court cases, portal being wide open 24/7
Yeah.
now, players being paid. And so if you missed the article, Saban said, this is just one of the quotes, quote, I thought we could have a hell of a team next year. And then maybe 70, 80% of the players you talk to, all they want to know is two things. What assurances do I have that I'm going to play because they're thinking about transferring, and how much you going to pay me? He says, our program here was always built on how much value we can create for your future and your personal development, academic success, and graduate development, NFL career on the field. So I'm saying to myself, maybe this doesn't work anymore. The goals
Yeah.
and aspirations are just different. And it's all about how much money he can make as a college player. Now, I do like this. I want to be fair to him. He says, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's never been what we were about. And it's not why we had success through the years. Here's the deal. I love players being paid. And I know this sounds like I'm setting up for a butt, but I'm really not. I love players being paid. I think the market has absolutely spoken. Like the most bipartisan political cooperation I've ever seen in my life
Mhm.
are states trying to make it easier for athletes to get paid. Like if Louisiana legislature can't get
Mhm.
shit done, but if it comes to loosening the restrictions so LSU can stay competitive with Mizzou and everybody else, like that shit gets passed like that,
Yeah.
right? So the market's spoken. I do wonder though, because you're someone who really, I think, highlights and appreciates the wonderful, quirky nature of college football and why it's so unique, do we lose any of that uniqueness as it becomes more professionalized?
Well, I mean, it's always been professionalized. It's just the sense that the teams grow to the size of the market. There's a reason that the NFL has never really, I think, managed to take hold in earnest in the South in the way that it did in, the Northeast or in the Midwest and parts of the Midwest at least. And that is because the teams that serve the markets down here were at the college level, and they were very much professional teams. It's just with an extremely skewed, weird economy when it came to how we paid players. We kind of managed to sneak a professional league in where
True.
there were no professional teams. And right now, the way that market works is when people say it's a disaster, I like to use words kind of accurately. I'm prone to hyperbole. I may be prone to exaggeration. I think disaster is a little strong. It's confusing. It's a market, a new market. And the way that it's an imperfect market too, because we have twin tracks of revenue. And I'm probably going to be writing about this next week if I can get my brain straight. We have twin tracks of revenue. One, you have the actual money, which is currently attracting players in NIL.
Yeah.
Which is completely firewalled, siloed, isolated from the money coming in for the value of the product. That's messed up. That's deeply messed up. We have all of this TV money coming into the system. The TV money is the thing that is driving this transformative era in college football where we finally looked at the money and said, hey, players should be getting some of that. But they're still not.
I know.
They're still not. Because that's still going to the schools. We haven't solved anything. Instead, we created, and Seth Emerson has a pretty good article about this in The Athletic today. We've created the system where we basically have subscription services for our NIL collectives and football programs, which are different. So I want you to consider, it's not even like we turned college football into Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime Video or whatever. What's happening is this: we have created a subscription service for college football if you want your team to be good, where the actual money generated on the other end is totally isolated and has nothing to do with the money that comes for the production of the product. It is completely divorced. It's very weird. Like it's very weird that they're totally separated, and that won't last. That will not last.
No.
Court challenges will knock that down. Right now, I see some people in the comments who are like, the portal is a disaster. Okay, the portal right now is a disaster because we can't recognize people as employees and can't give them contracts.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone in America can enter the portal at their job, except for college football players who have to not be employees and thus have this weird market. It's very messed up, and most other sports have figured out a way to solve this, and I think we will eventually. But right now, I do sympathize somewhat with a 72-year-old football coach worth several $1 million at the very least, because would you want to reinvent yourself and figure this all out?
He's been like that. He was so good for so long at adapting, right? Schematically on the field, certainly in a program sense as well. But yeah, I mean, you get older and older, and it's just maybe this is just a step too far. I mean, Spencer, to me, this all feels like what happens when you accept this is the fallout from accepting a structure that should have been flatly illegal from day one,
right?
But we just all thought was, no, this is like the actual right, correct way to do this, and we did it for 100 years.